That moves us to number 10 on our agenda, which is the approval of the minutes of the March 25th meeting. Mr. Hogan, do you have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the March 25th, 2024 board meeting.
Do I have a second? Ms. Snipes, second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That motion carries 7-0, and that moves us to public participation. As we move to public participation, the board welcomes and encourages public participation. We respectfully ask that you adhere to the procedures provided in Board Policy BEDH, Public Participation at Meetings. Your comments should be limited to 3 minutes and must remain on either the topic noted on your sign-in form or a listed agenda item. Questions asked during public participation will be handled in accordance with Board Policy BEDH. Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ayana Mays is here to speak about age-appropriate library material.
Good evening. I will try to be brief. I have worked in education with both adults and children from 18 months to 18 years. And I still believe it is important to listen and learn from others in conversations concerning age appropriateness. However, today I need you to listen to me as someone who has spent over 20 years advocating for youth, because I know what it's like to be voiceless and marginalized in school. While working at Benedict College, my department participated in Darkness to Light training twice. It is an extremely difficult and heartbreakingly honest training on recognizing and supporting childhood victims of abuse and assault. Their stories will never leave me. I am grateful because I spent 3 years as the librarian for a middle school where more than half the students had at least 2 adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, including any form of abuse you can name. I remember one in particular who spent health class with me because she was too triggered by the classroom discussion, which the other students needed, of course, but she was forced to be familiar with anatomy too early and in the worst way imaginable. I still remember her favorite book, He Said, She Said by Kwame Alexander. When I am selecting library books and find one that addresses consent and the multitude of life-altering decisions young people make that received outstanding reviews from colleagues who read it in its entirety, I think of the silent struggles of my students and remember that sometimes an author can speak to them in a way that no one else can, in a way that can save them. I remember a child who checked out the same book over and over because no one could buy it for her, or she did not have the words at 12 and 13 to tell her parents what it meant to her. That's why we are here, to provide those choices and that safe space, to advocate for all, not some, and not just when it makes us feel comfortable. Thank you.
Connor Bryant is here to speak about book banning.
My name is Connor Bryant, and I'm a senior at Chapin High School. In my last speech, I spoke a little about how the words "kill all fags" was etched into one of the stalls. I don't want any of you listening to think that this is a one-off isolated incident. The other day, I saw something even more chilling carved into a different stall. This time, 2 students called out my name. I don't know if they're current or old students, but either way, it is still seriously concerning. The words "kill blank and blank fags" have been carved into the stall. Replace the blanks with 2 names of students, and you'll see how this is so concerning. Beliefs like these that are present in teenagers are not inherent. They are taught to them, either actively or through a lack of education on the topic. We tend to fear and dislike the things and people that we do not understand. Challenging and banning books only worsens this problem. Reading books is a good way to open your eyes to new perspectives and ways of life. It is a great way to become more understanding of other people's situations. Being more understanding and educated about other people different from yourself decreases hate towards them because you know more about them and can, hopefully, empathize with them. Banning books, however, is a fantastic way to increase closed-minded thinking, hate, and a lack of understanding, all of which has the potential to lead to violent actions. A world where we love each other through understanding is a safer place than our current world. A world which is filled with disdain towards others, unfounded hate, and division. You believe that you are protecting our children, but you are in fact hurting them. You are creating more single-minded, hateful, and in-group-oriented teenagers. If you really want to help us, then please support those of us who need that support the most. The Trevor Project released the results of their 2023 National Survey on the Mental Health of LGBTQ+ teens, and the results are eye-opening. 41% of LGBTQ+ people seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. 56% of LGBTQ+ people who wanted mental health care in the past year could not get it. Fewer than 40% of LGBTQ+ teens found their homes to be affirming, and most importantly to my argument, nearly 66% of LGBTQ+ teens said that hearing about state or local laws banning people from discussing LGBTQ+ people at school made their mental health significantly worse. These teens could be your children or your children's friends. Do you really want to facilitate an environment that causes them to feel this way? If not, then please stop challenging and banning books that give us representation. You are hurting us, and you don't seem to care. We are people too. We deserve respect, and we deserve to live in a world where we can be ourselves. Myself and my fellow members of the queer community will not be silenced. You will not succeed in drowning out our voices in your hate. We speak out in love, which is stronger and louder than hate. We are and we will continue to be heard. Thank you and have a great night.
Jackson Lee Bryant is here to speak about book banning.
Book banners and those who cater to them in order to garner their support continue to rail against children's supposedly rampant exposure to inappropriate and potentially harmful material. That this material may be shelved in school, libraries, and classrooms disturbs you. That it could be required reading enrages you. I have similar, though milder, misgivings. My son will soon graduate from Chapin High School. Throughout his childhood, my wife and I debated the age appropriateness of books, TV shows, movies, and video games. Frequently, we consulted common sense media. When our son asked for a smartphone in middle school, we refused. Smartphones, unrestricted by district web filters, can be used to listen to sexually explicit songs, to locate adult content on websites, and to stream R-rated movies and shows. Our son, we decided, was too young for such temptation. So when his school district handed all middle schoolers digital devices, my wife and I were furious. According to our son, one of his classmates used a proxy to play clips from R-rated films on his district device. Thanks to this child, our 12-year-old watched the beginning of the 2017 film It, wherein Pennywise the clown bites off a boy's arm before dragging him screaming into the sewer. That same year, our son read The Fifth Wave. Although Rick Yancey's sci-fi novel is largely innocuous, one or two scenes made our son uncomfortable, so he skipped them. He explained to us that whenever characters' conversations or thoughts foreshadowed intimacies he'd rather not read, he'd skim ahead, find where those interactions ended, then pick up from there. His explanation illustrates an important truth. Reading is a private act. You cannot be forced to read every word. Students who turn to SparkNotes instead of turning the pages of assigned novels understand this. So do adults who visit websites such as BookLooks, where they scrutinize curated collections of out-of-context dirty bits before demanding that districts remove offensive titles from all schools. Their actions suggest that students lack the ability to choose books for themselves, that their morals are exceptionally pliable, that they are ignorant of their parents' beliefs regarding what they should or should not read. Their actions imply that parents themselves lack the judgment to decide what is appropriate for their children. Perhaps book banners should spend less time fretting about other people's children and even more time talking to their own. And please talk about more than books. Ask to look at their smartphones. Ask them what they're listening to, what they're watching. Maybe you'll discover concerns more troubling than the books they might happen to read. Books, after all, are just books. They can be closed and returned to libraries. where they belong. Thank you.
Jen Von On is here to speak about Irmo Little League using a field at H.E. Corley Elementary School.
Good evening. My name is Jen Von On. I'm a proud parent of 4 D5 students, and I'm speaking on behalf of Irmo Little League. My family has been a member of Irmo Little League for over 12 years, and I have had the honor to serve as the vice president for the league for 10 years. Irmo Little League is proudly celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, 30 years of recreation baseball and softball right here in District 5, including 34 state championships, 3 Southeast Regional championships, and 3 World Series appearances. In the last 10 years, spring registration has doubled from 300 kids to over 600 kids, kindergarten through 6th grade, currently playing, and another expected 150 to 200 7th to 10th graders about to start next month. These are all District 5 students. We are the largest recreational baseball program in the Midlands, specifically serving the Chapin, Dutch Fork, and Irmo communities. Unlike ICRC, though, Irmo Little League is a 100% volunteer organization where our main revenue comes from player registration fees, sponsorships, and donations made to the league. Friars Gate Park is the home of Irmo Little League since it was formed in 1994. Over the years, league volunteers have made many improvements to the park, including building a 3-lane covered batting cage, press boxes, soft toss area, bullpens, and have built the only unlocked high school-sized field in the area that is open for the community to use. Each day, the volunteers of Irmo Little League, either during their lunch or at the end of the night, after games have concluded, regularly drag and rake the fields, empty trash, and perform general maintenance on the fields so that they are in top form for the kids to play on the next day. Since before my time on the board and in the league, there has been an agreement with H.E. Corley and District 5 to be able to use the baseball field that is located behind H.E. Corley Elementary School. This field had been used for practices and games by the league until a few years ago when a car drove through the first base dugout. The field had been left untouched since then, as the league did not use it due to the safety issue of the broken fence, and neither the school district nor the county worked to clean up the mess. Since 2021, our league has continued to grow each year, and we are now at the point where we have maxed out our field space and are not able to register all interested players. Using the H.E. Corley Field would allow us to register many more players, as we could then play an additional 5 to 10 games a week, giving more District 5 students an opportunity to become part of the vibrant and positive community that exists at Irmo Little League. Currently, the field is not being used, even by the school, and has not been touched since the accident prior to COVID. The league has already invested several $1,000s to bring the field up to a playable condition and will maintain the fields, and is willing to provide temporary benches as necessary to be able to hold games. This will incur no additional cost to the district, but will provide more opportunities to District 5 students. The use of the field would not impact H.E. Corley, as it would not be used during the school day, and since there are no lights on the field, games would not go past dusk. The league and its volunteers would maintain this field each day, just as we do for the 6 other fields at Friars Gate Park. If you have not been to Irmo Little League before, I encourage you to come down to Friars Gate Park one night and enjoy the great baseball and softball experience and this exceptional community for yourself. Thank you.
Kim Murphy is here to speak about rezoning and bond referendum.
Good evening. I was shocked at the enrollment reports recently published on the Department of Education's website and a substantial decrease in enrollment in District 5. Overall, District 5 decreased by 206 students. High school, middle schools enrollment has decreased. Many, if not the majority of the elementary schools have decreased, like Ballantyne Elementary. Even Lake Murray Elementary in the Chapin cluster decreased, and Chapin Elementary only grew by 3 students. Why are you proposing portables at Chapin Middle School? And I gotta say this, is it because they helped sell a bond referendum? I mean, have you looked at the lower grades to see how the upper grades are now graduating on out? We keep hearing of all the growth in Chapin, but clearly it's not impacting the elementary schools. The middle and high schools in Chapin are also not experiencing the growth that you would anticipate. Is that because many students have enrolled in private schools or charter schools, or is it because empty nesters are moving in? I have not seen this new data in the public board packet, or even calculated within the rezoning data. In light of this trend in decreasing enrollment, before approving rezoning students or a bond referendum with new schools, common sense says the board owes it to the students, parents, and taxpayers to analyze it and look at other options and their costs. Any growth we are now seeing, which is not significant because of a lack of development on the Richland County side of the district, is in the upper grades of Chapin. Why would you move Ballantyne into the Chapin cluster, which would only exacerbate any capacity issues and cause Dutch Fork High School to lose even more students? Here's just one low cost or lower cost or no cost solution. Solve the sixth grade issue at Crossroads first. Incorporate the sixth graders in their appropriate middle schools. There is room at Irma Middle, and with declining enrollment in the Dutch Fork elementary schools, Dutch Fork Middle School should also, or considering adding on classrooms to Dutch Fork Middle. This opens up a whole school to use for other purposes, such as a district office, instead of a $25 million office on the bond referendum. And instead of building a $41 million elementary school to replace Dutch Fork Elementary, which has decreased now to 414 K through 5 students, on a phased-in basis to avoid disruption, incorporate the students in the nearby elementary schools, which have room. That opens up a second school for other uses. I'm not saying to you to do these things. I'm suggesting that you look at it or them or other options before you vote to rezone or hold a $240 million referendum. Thank you very much.
Grady Martin is here to speak about bond and rezoning.
Thank you guys all for the time to speak. I'd like to thank Dr. Ross for his dedication to the district. With the exception of our teachers, I think he and the district staff that's here today do more probably in a week than most of us may do in a lifetime for the children in our community. With the 3-minute timeline, I apologize for the quick pace and no-frills delivery that's necessitated here. And while the thoughts and information I'm going to share are contrary to Dr. Ross's plan for fix and fill, is by no means meant to discount his dedication to the school district. It's simply an honest assessment of this fix and fill plan as it stands today. In February, when Dr. Ross called a meeting at Ballantyne Elementary, he laid out the priorities for the fix and fill plan. It had the needs of the student as the number one. Yet throughout his presentation, he focused on a $200,000 or $300,000 study on what light bulbs needed replacing in district buildings and what doorknobs were worn out. Facilities are a big expense, so possibly it was necessary to complete such a costly process. But if you spend that on facilities, you would spend as much or maybe even more on the number one priority, your students. Well, when we posed that question to him and what studies were done on the mental health and emotional needs of the students during the rezoning, we got a canned answer that skirted the issue, and the formal answer later was to state how much was spent on mental health overall. To echo the words of all of you on the board from his 2023 evaluation, the community knows when something's wrong. Only positive messaging during those times could be seen as sweeping something under the rug. This is certainly how we feel. Why is the board not demanding better research and information? There's volumes of evidence to support the need to minimize school changes for elementary age students. Yet these most vulnerable ones are the ones that Dr. Ross's plan punishes the most. In fact, a study in Texas even found that high mobility in schools had a dramatic impact on the academic achievement of not just the students moving, but all of the students in the same school. Why am I, the parent of a kindergartner, providing this information and not the team tasked with the project? Well, simply put, they were too busy hiring consultants to look for burned out light bulbs and broken doorknobs to focus on what matters, the students. The other takeaway from the February meeting at BES was to potentially allow for grandfathering of children attending Ballantyne. As an attendee, we all left with the feeling that that was all but guaranteed. Then, on the April 11th town hall was announced, we as a community, we hoped we would get further answers on that grandfathering plan, but instead of a town hall, we got a recycled PowerPoint and a handful of softball questions. Grandfathering was addressed with a terse, it wouldn't be rezoning if we allow grandfathering. This is contrary to what many schools in even Lexington County are doing. In fact, Lexington One is utilizing a grandfathering process as part of their elementary rezoning for the next school year. So I would disagree with Dr. Ross. With rezoning can be in place with grandfathering. And finally, the public is being grossly deceived.
Madeline Garland Wilson is here to speak about teacher retention.
According to the Center for Educator Recruitment, Retention, and Advancement, there are over 1,600 educator vacancies in South Carolina at the beginning of the 2023-24 school year. This was up by 9% from the previous year. In fact, this is the 5th year in a row that teacher vacancies have hit a record high. Last year, about this time, the Teacher Recruitment and Retention Task Force released their recommendations regarding this issue. While there are 23 suggestions to improve retention and recruitment, which should be going into effect this June, I want to focus on suggestion number 7, implement a public relations campaign. Suggestion number 7 reads in part, quote, recruitment of educators suffers from negative discourse surrounding the field of public education. The issue of respect was a consistent thread in the majority of comments. Respect was cited as the primary issue for teachers who expressed concerns about remaining in the profession. Educators reported feeling a lack of respect from a variety of sources. This campaign should also feature the educational value and importance of educator roles other than classroom teachers, especially school support professionals like school librarians, end quote. School District 5 of Lexington and Richland counties has always been a leader in education in South Carolina, so let's see how we're doing in the effort to recruit and retain teachers and other school support professionals by showing them respect. Here's just one comment from social media. Quote, indoctrination is very evident here. The teachers are disgraceful for putting these children up to this. They should be disciplined for this. Why are children even at these meetings? They do not even have enough life experience to even remotely be able to speak on these topics. Do they think current adults needed to have these books to survive? I don't think so. As for the male guest speaker, I love how he took the lowest road possible through manipulation to discuss his horrible childhood and create an emotional environment to persuade people to think as he does. What a total loser. I have no words for the second male that stood up except far left liberal. That meeting sounded like a meeting from the most liberal school district in California. End quote. Did I mention this comment is on the public page of a trustee? I'd want to be educator in this district, wouldn't you? This comment, of course, is in regard to students, teachers, and community members speaking at board meetings after the board voted to ban a series of books that had been previously approved by the Committee of Actual Professional Educators after the initial challenge. The committee was completely disregarded by the trustees of the district that employs them. I'd want to be a librarian in this district, wouldn't you? Yet, here we are again, in a situation where rather than being respected as the professionals they are, media specialists and educators are being belittled because District 5 is in the unique position of having students who use the school libraries intentionally. But some people in this community and on this board trust book looks more than they trust degreed professionals with many years of experience working with young adults. If this district doesn't begin respecting the professionals they hired, 2024-25 will become the 6th year in a row for a record high deficit of educators. Thank you. My name is Garland Wilson, and I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, Sheena Wilson.
Madam Chair, that concludes public participation.
All right, thank you, Ms. Taylor.